Welcome back to the Digital Nomad World weekly lecture. Today I am here with Julie French, and we're going to talk
Hello.
about, hi, Julie, and I'm Becky, by the way, everyone. And we are going to talk about how to deal with loneliness as a nomad, something I think a lot of people do face. So, Julie, I'm really excited to talk about it with you today.
Me too. Very important topic to talk about. Very.
I think so. I really think so. But first,
Mhm.
Julie, can I ask you about your background and how you yourself became a digital nomad?
Oh, yes, quite the story. I'll make it point form. Okay, so about 6 or 6-ish years ago, I got a random call from a friend saying this guy that I know needs somebody to come help teach a boot camp in Mauritius, the company near or country near South Africa, near Madagascar. And at the time, I actually didn't even know Mauritius existed. Like I've never even heard of it before. And so I was asked, and then I was like, yeah, okay. And 10 days later, I'm in the airport on the way to a country I never even knew existed. So I was there for about 2 months and I was teaching a boot camp there. At that time, that's when I already had a travel bug, but that's when it really like ignited. I was like, I need to be in other countries. I just need to. This is something that's important to me. So when I got back after teaching that 2 month boot camp there in Mauritius, it was amazing. That in itself is a whole amazing conversation. So after that, when I got home, I was like, I need to do something to continue traveling.
Where was
I
home
actually,
for you, by the way,
oh,
Julie?
Victoria, Canada, Vancouver Island. In fact, I love
Okay.
my island so much, I actually have it on my necklace.
Oh,
Vancouver
I've heard
Island.
it's a really beautiful place. I haven't been before,
So
but
beautiful.
so you were
So
already in
beautiful.
what a lot of people think is this beautiful place, but you're like,
Yeah.
maybe other countries.
That's a huge point too. Is like I live where most people travel to. I live in a touristy city where also 350 cruise ships come every summer. I live there, yet I still felt the need to leave. I mean, I live on an island. I knew a lot of people, bit of a socialite. I wanted to go where I could get lost, where I knew nobody. Like I got that kind of bug, you know. I just really needed to get out in the world and see different culture. I feel in a way that we're really sheltered in Canada and like especially in the island. Everything is too perfect. You know what I mean? And I wanted to explore a different culture. And when I was in Mauritius, I got to go to some areas that really shattered my perception of reality. And I was like, I need this. This is very important for growth. So, anyways, I got back and then I got a job with a through a friend of mine, completely changed everything I was doing. And I decided to pedicab, which is actually drive the for tourists, drive those big tricycles with people that come off the cruise ships. And because I did that, I just knew that that was going to get me a lot of money to leave again. And I wasn't in the frame of a digital nomad yet until after that season, I went traveling and I saw people on their laptops everywhere. And I was like, this, this has got to be me. This will be me one day. This will be me one day. So after that, I came back, did another season of pedicabbing. And during that time, I was like, I was open. I was open to the universe. I was like, I am ready for something to help me be that digital nomad. I want to be one of those people in a cafe with their laptop, making money, help paying for my travels. And so I got a little side gig from this like tech college in Victoria called Q College. And they wanted me to write about the lifestyle of a digital nomad. So I was like, okay, this is perfect for my manifestation of being a digital nomad. Part of me felt like a fraud because I didn't feel like one yet. However, I was still in the way. It was like stepping stones, right? We have little stepping stones. I truly don't believe that not everybody is going to have like zero to hero to digital nomad life right away. There may be some stepping stones, there may be some fallbacks, but it will happen. Just be open. So, anyways, I had that. And then I left again for the next year. And I was in Chiang Mai, Thailand, where I went to a digital nomad summit. And I met a guy there, Jamie, super cool guy that worked as a writer, which is what I was doing for a company called The Hoff, based out of Florida. It's like a content marketing company. So I got the job through him. Well, he connected me. I got myself the job. And I wrote for The Hoff for about 2.5 years. And aside, I also coached clients with life coaching and fitness virtually while I was traveling. And then after that, I decided I kind of wanted to build on my coaching business. then to make it point form, I kind of burnt out. I love coaching, just the marketing wasn't really my cup of tea. And then after that, again, I said, universe, I am ready. I am ready for something new. I am open. And then I met this girl in Mexico who works as a headhunter. The idea of being a headhunter never even crossed my path. Like I never even in fathomed. It wasn't even in my paradigm of becoming a recruiter. I didn't even think that that was a job for some reason. It just wasn't in my, I didn't know people that were, And then so I met this girl, Nadia, a really cool girl. And then we traveled together, knew each other for a couple of months. And then I was like, Nadia, tell me more about what you do. She's like, oh, Julie, it's like coaching. It's really similar to what you do. And she told me how much money she made. I'm like, hmm, okay, connect me. Then I got myself that job and I've been doing that for a year and a half and I absolutely love it. It is so fun. It is just awesome. And then, yeah, so that's been kind of like my journey into becoming a digital nomad. So now I am one of those people in a cafe with a laptop happening. Yes.
You no longer have imposter syndrome. You actually are living that digital nomad life. Congratulations. And thanks for sharing all those twists and turns because, like you said, it's not like this linear journey, and there's so many iterations and, different jobs you can have as a digital nomad. But also like
Yes.
from your stories, it does seem like you said on the island you were quite a socialite. And I can tell that you're a very engaging person. So I know today we're also going to talk about loneliness. And I'm
Mhm.
wondering, well, before we get further into it, I would like to know what you think loneliness is. How would you define loneliness for us?
Yeah. Okay. So I feel loneliness is an emotion and it's characterized by the feeling of pain that's caused by the perceived lack of intimacy. So it's like, it's loneliness isn't actually just the physicality of what it looks like. Loneliness is how we perceive that. Because there can be people that absolutely love and want to have that solo time at the same time as you need to have that intimacy around you. So it's completely perceived by how we it's perceived, how we see it, how we feel about it. The story we tell ourselves about how about our perceived lack of intimacy.
So does this help explain why some people get lonely more often? And I know some people who tell me they never get lonely even when they're alone. Why do some people seem to feel that more than others?
Yeah. I want to go back on one thing that we said before. And I want to also say, like, there's an example that I use that helps to really understand loneliness. And it's like, I don't know about you, but I know that I can be in a room or in a city full of people and I can feel more alone than if I'm alone in nature. Because
Yes, I've
again,
definitely
that
felt
root,
that.
have you? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's because our narrative, our stories jump in and start saying things like, oh, I shouldn't be alone, or I'm unlovable, or I'm this or that. Or like when I see couples, my stories start to pop up. And that's when the loneliness happens. When I go out in nature, like I crave to be in nature alone, right? So it's like that's a deep sense of connection at our root. So in a way, we are getting a connection when we're alone, but then we could feel more alone when we're full of a room of people. So I think also loneliness is related to the lack of intimacy and connection.
So how can we improve that as we're traveling around the world and trying to connect with people?
Yeah, absolutely. Can I answer your other question too? Like why other
You
people get
can.
lonely and some don't? Sorry.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I
I
was starting to
remembered.
think from what you'd said, I was starting to think it's because
Yeah.
they have a higher perceived lack of intimacy, or they're telling
Yeah.
themselves stories in a different way than those people who
Yeah.
are feeling less lonely. Is it I don't know if that's correct or
Yeah.
I'm on the
Very
right track.
true. You are always. Yeah, I think also we're just such intricate souls. We're such unique people with different fingerprints of what our innate needs are, right? So my innate needs might be different than yours. I would assume though that ours are quite similar because I know you very well and I know that connection is something very desirable to you. Very I would assume it's probably one of your core needs. or not core needs, but core values is connection. I notice you always like to create meetups and create a dinner. And so I know that about you. However, let's say us compared to maybe somebody else, maybe their personality type is different. We have ENFPs, INTJs, all, the 16 personalities. We have introverts, we have extroverts. So it really depends on what our innate needs are. However, every single person in this planet does have an innate need to be heard and seen for who we truly are.
I definitely believe that. Yeah. So I'm thinking like if people, depending on their personality type, do we need to do different things to help us feel less lonely if we're perceiving that as a problem while we're traveling?
Absolutely, definitely. I would definitely think that depending on who we are and what our needs are and what our stories are about loneliness, we have different ways to deal with it, to solve it.
So have you, I'm curious, have you felt lonely while you have been traveling? Can you share a couple of stories with us?
Yeah, funny enough, you just asked me because I just experienced a bout of that last week, actually. So I was in a big city and I noticed couples everywhere around me holding hands, kissing, all of this. And here I am, solo Julie, walking around. Well, then, of course, the stories started coming up, right? So it was, of course, yes, I was alone. And then I was feeling very vulnerable. And I started listening to the stories. So the stories were, I'm unlovable, or nobody wants to date me, or I blah, 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 all those silly stories that come up. And then the other stories of, oh, I shouldn't feel this way. I shouldn't feel this way, or I should be grateful. I should be grateful I live this life, or I chose this life, those kind of stories. So what I did was I really just sat with those feelings and I just heard them. And I knew that they were coming from some trigger, something that brought them up. And it's like this is an opportunity to take that flashlight and like turn it inwards. And like, what is this? Where is this coming from? So I sat with it. I gave my inner child a big, big loving hug. And then I spoke back to the feelings with compassion, with self-compassion, and just said, I don't feel I don't feel so good right now, and this will pass, and I'm okay. And just talking to myself with that love and with that self-compassion. And I think that's the most important. I think too, what sometimes when we become aware of our thoughts, then we start to should on our thoughts. And therefore it's like lack of self-compassion. So it's like hearing the thoughts and then giving that compassion to those thoughts. Because it's a need. There's something in there that needs to be heard and seen. So just hearing and seeing it. And then after that, after we solve how we feel about the problem, then we can solve the problem after, which is, okay, what can I do now? Can I call a friend that I really dearly love and connect to? Will that solve it? Do I need to be with people in person? Can I check up like a group or something online, which we'll probably get to in another thing after this, talking about different things that we can do. But yeah.
Oh, thank you for sharing that and how you processed it, because I think those are the things a lot of people may not think about when they're in that moment of the shoulds, and also
Mm-hmm.
bringing up such a common thing where you're feeling this lack as a nomad traveling of connecting romantically with people. And I'm sure that all of us from time to time have felt that. Do you have
Yeah.
any other stories, any other experiences that stand out in your mind of feeling lonely?
Yeah, I'll say like the biggest ones that bring up for me are typically the triggers of lack of romance. And the other one that typically comes up is just lack of people that I feel relatability to. Like, let's say I end up going to a city and it's a party city. I'm not much of a partier. Like, I don't go out, drink, and get around people that are all yelly, loud, drunk, blah, blah, blah. And when I'm around that, I feel very lonely as well because I can't connect with people. I don't have that intimacy and connection and that nourishment of an in-depth conversation. And so that typically is another trigger for me. So I remember, I think years ago. I remember this one time in Thailand, and I ended up showing up at a city that was like a huge party place. And I was so feeling lonely. And I actually decided to be alone rather than be around these people. Actually, this is another thing that brings up is that we can actually feel more because loneliness is disconnection, we can actually feel more lonely when we start to chameleonize ourselves to do things to feel a connection, because we actually disconnect from ourselves. If we're doing things to numb and solve the loneliness that is actually not something that's aligned with our needs, then we'll feel more lonely.
I can definitely identify with that. I'm like you. I'm not a big clubber, and I've definitely tried to go
Oh
to a
yeah.
club before. And it's there. I like music with lyrics, and often these
Yeah.
clubs don't have them. And I'm just trying to dance and enjoy. But if it's not
Yeah.
truly there, you're gonna feel it. You're gonna you're gonna feel
Right.
lonely. Yes.
Right?
Oh, for
You could
sure.
feel more lonely in a club full of people singing along to some rap music that you don't connect to than if you're with one other person or by yourself somewhere in a nice cafe with a good view.
Yeah, so like you said, really identify like what are your lonely triggers and what are the
Yeah.
ways, what are things you can do to mitigate that? And so I
Yeah.
want to ask you the next question, like what kind of things do you do to connect with people and ensure
Mhm.
that you're getting the right kind of connection on the road?
Yeah. I'll say one thing that I do actually that I love that is so close to my heart. Um, because of my awareness of myself and what I know that helps with my loneliness is in-depth conversations and feeling that intimate, that conversational intimacy. I actually became an authentic relating facilitator. And I started leading that around the world where I was. And in fact, I have a quick little story to share. When I was last in Portugal, actually, in the city that I'm in now, Lagos, um, it was during the time of COVID. And it was actually kind of against the law at the time to have more than like 4 or 5 people together in a group. Well, every Wednesday in my flat, I had between 12 to 16 people. Now, where that may perceive as something that is not okay, I saw a need, and I saw that there was a lot of people alone feeling the pains of the world at that moment. There was a lot of struggles, and a lot of people didn't have someone to authentically share how they truly felt because of the force of kind of toxic positivity, like, oh yeah, I'm doing great, kind of feeling. So I'm like, what can I do to help these people feel connected right now during this time? And there's a digital nomad community here. So I offered that at my flat, and I called it Underground Connection. And I offered authentic relating, and it was like connection games between about 6:30 to 9:30 in my flat every Wednesday. And I saw people when they left, they were hugging in the street, they were exchanging phone numbers. They started then offering their thing to the group. And then we all had like our little offerings of what we would do. One had a static dance, one would do this other thing. And it was just so amazing. And I just saw people feeling, and people would come to me and be like from the bottom of my heart, like, thank you. Like, I have the ability now to share real and not put on this mask of pretending to be happy when I'm not right now. And it was just like, oh yeah. So that's one thing. Authentic relating.
Yeah, and I remember when I met you for the first time in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Shout out to Buenos Aires. I remember that you had these, you were having some of these meetups there as well, just because
Mm-hmm.
you know that you need that deep connection in those conversations. And so, as nomads, it's perfectly like if something that you like, reach out to the community and host something. And
Yes.
before you know it, 15 people are in your home. And in that situation too, it was always up to them to come and join you in the, whatever climate or environment that you're in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that that's one great way to connect.
Yeah, thank you. And I agree with you. Like, step aside from that imposter feeling showing up and just get over that and realize that you hosting this also means someone else probably needs it too. And that you're doing something greater than yourself by stepping outside of that fear and doing it anyways and hosting something. Because I knew that I just had this calling and I did it. And I had all the imposter, stories come up. Oh, you don't know what you're doing. You're new at this. It was absolutely transformative for everybody. And it was so important. So that's
Oh
one
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I do is like, okay, what are my interests? I'm an acro yogi. I love CrossFit. I love yoga. So what do? I'll look up a CrossFit box. I'll definitely find the acro yoga communities through Facebook or whatever, or through people I know if they know somebody there. And or I'll go to yoga class. So I go to meet people that have similar interests and relatability to me. So I'll show up, then I'll meet new friends, people who love exercise, love health, love the connection through acro yoga and the play. That's a huge thing. So just realize, like, what do I love? Do I love to exercise? Do I love to go to a fitness class? Do I love yoga? Do I love beer tasting, wine tasting groups? Whatever it is, find that and go meet them.
Yeah, we're so blessed with all this technology these days, all these Google searches we
Yeah.
can make to connect with like-minded people. I do think there's nothing like connecting with someone who has a similar passion to you for something. It's
Oh,
infectious,
yeah.
that passion.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like that time when we all went to Mendoza and we're all foodies and winos and we shared the love of food and wine together as a group.
Yes,
Special.
definitely. Now, I have a question for you, Julie. Do you ever go to the movies when you're traveling to different places alone, or do you go to restaurants alone? Because I think these things are things that people really have this fear about, especially like dinner alone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All the time. I will go to a concert by myself. I will go to the movies by myself. I will go to dinner by myself. I think it's very, very crucial as a digital nomad, as a traveler, as anybody with not even that, to learn to enjoy our own company. And if there's a fear
That's
of being
key.
alone, there's something that you are not wanting to see. There's something subconsciously that you may be afraid to feel. There's something that wants to be felt. There's actually, okay, I don't remember who said the quote, but the quote along the lines of the hardest thing for mankind to do or man to do is to sit alone in a room by themselves.
Yeah, it can really feel that way.
Yeah, because there's no distraction. And I think it's a really important thing to do is that if you're starting to feel loneliness, of course it's important to go satisfy that need that you have for intimacy and connection and play or whatever it is. However, not to numb yourself with busyness, not to just get busy and distract yourself from a core emotion that is coming up that may be something that you may need to look at. And if you're afraid to be alone, to go to dinner by yourself, to go to the movie, there may be something maybe that you might need to look at. There might be something that needs to come up, that needs to be felt, to be healed.
I think so. I think so. Do you have any stories that you remember of going to the movies by yourself or dinner and then connecting with someone that you didn't expect to happen?
All the time. In fact, I have the most in-depth, incredible connections when I go do things alone. I meet the coolest people. And I think also it's because we don't have the emotional crutch of a friend. If we're like walking down the street with our friend and we're talking to each other, we don't feel the need to branch out of that to connect to other people because we got each other. It's comfortable. We don't need it. However, when you're alone, there's something magical that happens because of your innate need to connect. You get outside your comfort zone and you will do things to fill that need. And you may just be so surprised of how outgoing you may become because your need is to connect. And so I've had it where I've met some of my most impactful, pivotal people that I've met of all my travels are when I was alone.
Yeah, I have to say I've experienced the same. And also, I've experienced the awkwardness. I once went to dinner alone at a kind of fancy restaurant in Vietnam, and the waitress stood next to my table, stood, and I'm sitting alone. And I felt like I had a target or a spotlight on the table. And because she felt bad for me, she was just talking to me
Oh,
standing. But what
yeah.
I realized from that was I felt I was telling a story to myself. This is awkward. This everybody's looking at me now. But when I got through the dinner, I was like, it was nice to talk with her. And even though you just go through the awkwardness and you're like, this isn't so
Mhm.
bad. Going to dinner alone is not so bad. Even if the worst happens, let's
Totally.
say what you're saying is the worst in your mind. And again, that's a story.
Absolutely. In fact, I actually get some of the best treatment in restaurants when I go alone. Like I
Me
really
too.
truly do. This waiter the other day gave me a free glass of wine. One actually another the other day gave me a dessert, and then another guy we got each other's contact, and he wanted to take me for a hike when was in Slovenia. And so yeah, I just find like okay, this sounds kind of funny because I'm saying they're all he. It's not because I'm a female and I see that. And I was like, oh, you know what? I've had female waitresses be very amazing too and treat me and have great conversation. And I think also it inspires people when they see somebody or when you see somebody alone at dinner, it gives you like the permission to do that yourself.
Exactly. And all these people we're just mentioning now are they're often locals. They must be if they're working there. And so you're connecting with a local, which can also be a
Yeah.
real challenge as a digital nomad because we will often
Ooh.
drift towards our like fellow nomad community.
For sure. I think that's very important too, is that you make friends with more locals when you go alone because you're forced to talk to people. If you're at dinner with somebody, if we're at dinner together, how well are we going to get to know our waiter or waitress? Well, maybe people like us because we really love talking to people. However, not everybody is going to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm wondering because we are both, I think, extroverts to an extent, and we love talking. Do you have any advice if you could put yourself in the shoes of someone who's an introvert? Any advice for introverts and how they might connect when they get to a new city as a digital nomad?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, it's kind of hard to say because I'm not really, I can actually consider myself a bit of an omnivert at times. However,
Me
just
too,
knowing,
honestly.
yeah, yeah, very, I think we need to recharge at times. And I think that's very important to listen to that. I think as an introvert, really just listen. What are my boundaries?
Hmm.
What do I need? And how can I still be within not too much within comfort? I think it's still important to break outside of that comfort zone, but just how can I solve this and still listen to where my boundaries are with connection. You know, you may not want to go out to a crazy big meetup where everyone's drinking and loud at a party or a pub crawl, but maybe you might want to go to a little connection circle, or maybe you want to go to a yoga class because you're really in self connection in a yoga class. So, something that still involves your ability to be still connected to yourself at the same time as breaking outside and connecting with others. I've had a lot of introverts come to my connection circles, and because a lot of things are one on one, it's actually really satisfying and nourishing for them.
Yeah, that's a great tip.
Mm.
I've also seen a lot of my friends just post on Instagram and their stories, I'm coming to this place. Anyone want to meet up? And that's usually going to lend itself to one-on-one meetups. So if you want to start with just
Yeah.
one person, you
Mhm.
can build from there and see who they know, what they're interested in. They could guide you to other events. So
Absolutely. Yeah. Going on a Facebook group. And then from the Facebook WhatsApp, or sorry, from the Facebook Expat Digital Nomad group, you can find the WhatsApp group, like the WhatsApp group I created in Buenos Aires. And now it's like 3 groups, you know, so you go onto those groups and you can say, hey, I would love to meet up with someone for a coffee. You know, you can just say, I'd love to meet up with one person for a coffee, or if somebody is, I'm feeling lonely, blah, 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 blah. And it's really important too to set a context. So like setting a context is kind of like the what, when, where, how, why kind of thing. So it's like, I am feeling the need for nourishment and conversation. I'm craving a different type of conversation. Maybe if you're at a nomad meetup, no, I'm craving a connection. I'm craving something different than the typical narrative at this meetup. I was wondering if you'd like to engage in a different type of conversation, one with more curiosity. Um, since we're talking now, would you like to join in with me and have this conversation now? And then you can play a game with the person and play a game of not telling each other what you do, where you're from, but talk about what you love most about it, what it means to you, what you're passionate about, and like play like a deeper level game of the who are you, where are you from, what you do, and where are you going next. It's a nice little way to set a
Yes.
new context.
I've heard many of those questions at the digital nomad meetups for sure. And this
Mm-hmm.
actually brings me to a preview. We're going to have a future conversation on this show with someone who was feeling the need for connection so much that he created a card game of questions and deep questions. So I'll have to introduce you to that as well, Julie, because I'm sure you would love
Yes.
it. He's almost to the point where he's able to mass produce these card sets, and he's made them very small for nomads.
Oh
So we're
my
going to talk with him.
gosh.
Yeah. So there's so many ways you can connect. You can get out of your loneliness if that's what you're looking for. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
so glad that you've shared all of this with us today. If people want to follow you or follow your journey, where can they go?
My Instagram, I would say, is the best way. It's my name, Julie Nicole French. Super easy. Even my website is julienicolefrench.com, but I haven't touched it in like over a year, kind of put it on the back burner. So it's still there. You can still go to it. It's still kind of pretty. I built it. However, yeah, Instagram is the best way.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, Julie. And I hope you keep connecting with people out there and enjoy Lagos.
Yeah, definitely will. And I would hope to see you soon.
Yes. Hope to
Give
see you
you
soon
big hugs.
too. Oh, thank you.